Going on Dead Prez, how you guys doing?
Fantastic. Super dope, man.
Okay, so how did rap artists such as yourself, with the message that you guys put out, manage to get a deal? Do you reckon you would have got a deal in the current climate of hip-hop?
Well, I mean, we had a strategy, you know. We looked at the landscape. We didn't want to end up on a label for the rest of our lives. You know, we wanted to use it to get exposure and get some resources. So our strategy was to be good enough to be commercially competitive and to have them be able to see that we had the artistic skill, you know, and we had the concept. You know, so we went into loud with our concept, name of our group, the logo, some of the message. We didn't give them our whole message. You know, we knew that Mobb Deep and Wu-Tang Clan was on Loud Records at the time, so we gave them music that was as close as our music was in that vein. You know, we didn't give them, you know, our full revolutionary perspective, so to speak. You know what I mean? And so that's how we were able to, I guess, trick the guards and, you know, get on that label. And if we needed to get a deal today, which we're not interested in that, we striving to have partnerships in terms of distribution and things like that. But if we needed to do that, we would just create a strategy.
So I meant as in if you were just starting up now.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think there's more. If you think now, it's hard to say because to take it out of context. Well, then then did 9/11 happen? And then is Mumia was still locked up and all of that? And if that's the case, I think we're even more relevant now than we were when we began. You know what I'm saying? So and like Stick said. I think the rhymes is just as high. I mean, look at these, poor little MCs they got out here right now. We eating them. You know what I'm saying? We eating them then and we eating them today. You know what I'm saying? So I think that if it comes,
take the Drake balls back.
Yeah, it got to happen. You know what I'm saying? So my point is we would develop a concept, and if we needed a bank, which is what a record label is, to finance the marketing and promotion of the album, we would put our heads together, and figure out how to rob that bank. You know what I'm saying? Which is what we ultimately were trying to figure out then. You know what I'm saying? How do we get up there and jerk? Because it seemed like the impossible dream then too, or not really the impossible dream, but the idea was to rob a bank. You know what I'm saying? How do we get this enough to sustain us? So if it had to happen today, I don't know if I want to do it because of the way music is and how easy we are able to disseminate our music through the internet and so many different ways with the great equalizers here today. I wouldn't know if I would want to get a deal, but if we were trying to get a deal, I do think that we put together a strategy, beat down at them banks, get the key and pick the lock and figure out how to work that game. You know what I'm saying? If that's what it had to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. And as you said, you're revolutionary hip-hop. Some would argue that there's a thin line between being pro-black and being racist. How would you say that you distinguish between the two?
Well, racism is based off institutional power. You know what I mean? In order to be a racist and have it have any effect, you have to have control over people's lives. You have to have. We dealing with a racist court system. We dealing with a racist legal system. We dealing with a racist economic system. So to say somebody who says our community needs to protect itself, our community needs to provide for itself. Our community deserves justice under the laws. That wherever we live in the world. And to eradicate laws that are not just. To say that that's racist, is missing the whole point. You know what I mean? It's the racist, capitalist, imperialist, colonialist systems that are in place that never may say the word nigger, or never may say
certain words, but their essence, is exploiting people, and creating second and third and fourth and fifth class citizens. You know what I mean? So, to say that Dead Prez is racist is just some crack ass bullshit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, this is slightly add on to that. To those who would say there's a thin line between being pro-black and racist, to those who would say that, I question their position. I question exactly where they sit on the stance of African people having power in our lives. Because obviously there's a total disconnect. It's ludicrous. There's not a thin line between being pro-black and being racist. Racism is an idea that was born out of white power. That's all. The idea that you could be better and you better than me based off the idea that simply because my skin is lighter than yours or different than yours, that I'm better than you, which is powered by the idea that I done enslaved your ass for 400 years. So, well, 500 years. But being pro-black is an identification with ourself, our struggle, our community, our roots. That is totally nowhere near. There's a huge divide and gap between racism, which is rooted in white power, and black pride or pro-blackness. You know what I mean? Which is a great idea, but that don't win the whole ball game either. Pro-blackness doesn't win the ball game either, meaning get us free. I say win the ball game.
And 10th year anniversary since you released Let's Get Free. Since then we've had Obama, Oprah's the richest woman, Will and Jada, most powerful couple. Would you say many of the same problems exist for black people in America? Would you say?
Yes. You just named a few people that escaped that, and everybody else still dealing with it.
And I don't even think they've escaped it.
I'm joking.
Yeah, I definitely. I think in order to create this idea that you can succeed, the measuring stick is the marker stick is measured by your ability to unite and create wealth for capitalism and white power. It's there's not a marker based on how independent, how free thinking, those aren't even markers of success. So in order to even have an idea that you can say, oh, here I am, I've arrived, you have to do it based on their terms. I think that is a whole nother fallacy.
Yeah, I think, again, like even the people that we point out when we say these people have success, would be like a Will and Jada, Oprah, whatever, and I assume that's, I would assume that's based off their money, you know what I mean? They got a certain amount of money, so what's your problem? You know what I mean? And, while money is definitely needed in the movement, is needed on a daily basis, that measuring stick is crazy limited, you know what I mean? When you ask yourself what kind of campaigns, what kind of independence, like Em was saying, are people successful at, I think that's what I consider more, success. But I do look up to Will and Jada and Oprah for some of their personal, character in certain ways, you know what I mean? Not politically, but I like how Will Smith is a father in his family, and Jada a mother, and how they support their children, and I respect that, I like that Oprah is a black woman who taught herself the business of broadcast journalism and talk shows, and decided to be an entrepreneur in that, and not just on CNN reporting their news or whatever. I think she's an inspiration in owning, that resource, undeniable. And I think by her and Will being in those positions, not of power, but of influence, right? Because there's a difference. I think they're able to use money and resources and fund things if they so choose, and when they actually do choose. That a lot of people who, you know, talk and criticize them don't have them resources. You know what I mean? So at least they're in a position where they can help if they want to. You know what I mean? So I respect that. You know, I know that ain't easy for black people to do. I don't give a fuck who you are, you know, to get into the positions they're in. That take a lot of strategy, dedication, and focus.